Brett Marcus comes in. He goes, "Where's Frank?" I said, I don't know. And he starts swearing. I'm thinking, wow, everybody's very thrilled to see me. This is fantastic. So I got everything ready. And if you remember back in the day for Live at 5, Don Pardo was the announcer. And he was on camera and he goes, "From WNBC TV in New York, this is Live at 5 with Jack Cafferty, Sue Simmons, and Frank Field with the weather." So now it's me, and I'm standing there and I'm watching, and he goes into the thing, and he goes, "Sue Simmons, Jack Cafferty, and Al Roker with the weather." Don Pardo just said my name.
Oh, man.
Oh, my God. So in the commercial break, I go up to him and said, "Mr. Pardo, I just wanted you to know I'm just a huge fan, and it was pretty exciting to hear you say my name." "I know. I punched it for you."
Benztown President Dave Chachi Dennis loves radio and all of his radio friends.
Hey, Chachi.
Hey, everybody.
Because Chachi loves everybody.
My next guest has been named Best Weatherman twice by New York Magazine. He's a recipient of the seal of approval from the American Meteorological Society and has been a pioneer in utilizing computer graphics for weathercasting. With 3 Daytime Emmy Awards to his name, he also co-hosts Sirius XM's Off the Rails. Additionally, he starred in the Broadway play Waitress at the Brooks Atkins Theater in New York City. Holding 2 Guinness World Records, he is also a best-selling author with 13 acclaimed books to his credit. Please welcome weather and feature anchor of the NBC News Today, Al Roker. Tell me, Al, a little bit about growing up in Queens.
Well, we moved there when I was in 3rd grade from Canarsie, Brooklyn. We moved into a home for the first time. And it was, very much like a lot of, I think people get the idea of New York City as this monolith, when in fact, once you get out of Manhattan and even out of Midtown, New York City is a collection of small towns. These were all towns that were eventually annexed by New York City. I mean, at one time, Brooklyn was the 4th largest city in the country. So St. Albans, Queens was a part of those little towns. And we had, downtown, kind of a business section. I went to school in a Catholic school, the St. Catherine of Siena. And, my school bus was the Q4 on Linden Boulevard. So, it was a lot like what everybody experienced, just, in New York. Same kind of thing, same neighbors, same neighborhoods, same neighborhood barbershops, grocery stores, all the things that everybody's grown up with.
Did you know from an early age that you wanted to pursue broadcasting?
Yeah, I was always fascinated by radio and television. I thought maybe I could be in radio. I didn't think I was television worthy, but I wanted to be in television. I wanted to either be a writer or a producer. I remember my dad was a New York City bus driver, and he'd bring stuff home that fell off the back of a truck at the depot. And one time he brought home a 3M woolen sack reel-to-reel tape recorder. And I was fascinated because you could record stuff, and my brothers and sisters, we would do plays and stuff. And I discovered that if you took the back of the TV off and you ran speaker wire from the leads of the speaker into the line in, you could actually record the audio off the television.
Oh, it's clever.
There was a place in Queens called Lafayette Radio where you could go and hobbyists could buy stuff. And I remember buying a splicing block and splicing tape and splicing things together. I was fascinated by it.
So you had a bit of an engineering mind as well.
Yeah. In fact, it's lapsed, but I had my first degree radio operator's license from the FCC.
Oh, no kidding. So early on, you gravitated to broadcasting. Were your parents supportive of that?
Yeah, they were. Although I think they were a little nervous about it because I was always in the basement, either recording something or I had a Super 8 millimeter camera that my dad had brought home from the depot, and I was making stop action, kind of like Gumby-like cartoons. And,
That's great.
We were thinking, he's never going to leave the basement. He's going to be here for the rest of my life.
Much like probably a kid that plays a lot of video games today, wanted you outside and playing baseball and so forth.
Exactly.
So you go to Syracuse and you get your first job at WTVH. Tell me a little bit about your first gig and what did you do there?
I was a sophomore at SUNY Oswego, and my department chairman told me after my first television performance He said, Roker, you have the perfect face for radio. but he's the same one that put me up for a job doing weekend weather. The station this was 1974, and they were looking to start a full weekend newscast. They did, news, but there was like one anchor who did news, sports, and weather. They wanted to do a full complement, a news guy, sports guy, weather. And so he put me up for the job, and lo and behold, I got the job at the end of my sophomore year. Junior year, on the weekends, I'd drive the 60 miles round trip. And then the end of my junior year, the weekday weatherman left, and I got that gig. And did my senior year, I was driving every day back and forth. And then 6 months after I graduated, I got a job at WTTG in Washington, D.C., which was then Metro Media. Now Fox. Did that for 2 years. I was so naive. The news director, when he interviewed me, said, look, you're not making a lot of money, but it'll be great for your resume because you will be on the number one newscast at 10 o'clock. And it wasn't until I got there that I realized they were the only newscast. I wasn't lying,
But going from Syracuse to D.C., I mean, D.C. is a top 10 market. That's a gigantic jump. And so, most people or a lot of people spend a lot of their career never making it to a market of that size. Did you kind of feel like you had something? I mean, obviously people saw something in you at such an early...
I don't know if I had something, but my qualification for that job was that I was cheap. I got a lot of... two great things happened. And I'm not ranking them, but one was I got a lot of experience in a major market. But two, I met the guy who probably changed my life professionally, and that was Willard Scott. He took me under his wing. He was at the NBC station at the time. Took me under his wing and kind of mentored me, before they even used the word mentoring, and he was very generous. He could have just as easily said, listen, this kid's a competitor. I'm not, and it wasn't anything he would say as much as just, I got to watch him close up. Although he did tell me two things. One was always be yourself, because you can do a character and all this stuff, but at the end of the day, all you've got is you. And the other one was never give up your day job. No matter what you do, a lot of it's going to flow from your television gig. And he was right on both counts.
Two great pieces of advice, and a common theme with a lot of people, very successful people such as yourself that I've been able to interview, is one, they have a tremendous amount of grit, and you talk about the grit going back and forth and, every weekend making the drive from school to be on the air in Syracuse, and then having a mentor around you. And that is such a valuable tool. And it's, kind to do that. And for someone to take that time to teach someone is really a wonderful gift.
Yep.
You get your first gig with NBC, and you go to Cleveland to WKYC. And talk to me, why did you make that? Why did you jump from DC to Cleveland?
Well, because at WTTG, you were doing one newscast a day. It was the station's Fox. It hadn't become this juggernaut of these, both from a network standpoint, and there was no Fox News. There was no Fox Network at that point. It was just, they would run Merv Griffin going into the 10 o'clock news.
I see.
And you only got to do one newscast a day, whereas this was an opportunity to go to the NBC network and the network family, but B, to do three newscasts a day, 5 o'clock news, a 6 o'clock, and 11. And by the very nature of life, the more you do something, the better you get, hopefully. I mean, that's the way it's supposed to work. And so I think my persona, if you will, came into focus at Channel 3 in Cleveland. And at the time, Cleveland was going through a lot of problems. In fact, my first day at work, the city went into bankruptcy under Dennis Kucinich.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And it was just wild. It was tough, but I had a great time. It was, still the heyday of local news, and it wasn't quite Anchorman. We had a tight-knit group of reporters, of anchors, of photographers, producers. It wasn't unusual on any given weekend. We were at somebody's house, whether it was a photographer, one of the anchors, one of the reporters, for a party. It truly was a family. It was really a great experience. And that's also where they kind of let me do reporting as well. So I got an opportunity to not only do weather, but to do general feature reporting.
You made such an impact there that one of the fellow Library of American Broadcasting Foundation giant inductees that we're going to talk about here in a few minutes, his name is Mike McVeigh, and he lives in Cleveland. And he said that the station still refers to their weather tracker after you.
Well, look, I had a great time there. It's kind of where you feel like you came into your own. Cleveland has really staged a remarkable comeback. It is a great city. It's a metropolitan city. It's got major sports franchises, which it's always had, but, we got a lot of respect. Downtown is gorgeous. It's always had an incredible arts scene. And it's just in this renaissance now. So I still consider that my second home.
I need to go and visit. I know they also have the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and the Guardians made it to the ALCS this year. So you get the call to go to New York City, market number one, to the WNBC, which is obviously just a legendary set of call letters. What did you feel when that call? Who called you and asked?
Well, here's the story, which again, I've been blessed with real mentors. My news director at the time in Cleveland was a woman named Chris Ostrovsky, just terrific. She called me into her office and said, look, WNBC has had a weekend weather opening for like over 6 months, and you're from New York. You should have that job. And I'm going to call the news director, Bob Davis, so that he knows it's okay, but you need to go interview for that job. And I went, I interviewed. They offered me the job. I came back. They knew I was, leaving. But what was funny, the general manager of the station at the time said, look, here's the deal. We have just moved out of third place. We're in second place. We're doing really well. If you sign a 2-year contract to stay in Cleveland, we'll give you a tremendous raise. And you will, at the end of the 2 years, we will move you to New York to do weekends at the Saints Home. And I just gone through a divorce. I felt kind of adrift. And I called my agent. I said, you know what? I think I'm going to stay. And he was like apoplectic, but he said, listen, I respect your choice, but just sleep on it. And unbeknownst to me, he called Chris Ostrovsky. She called me into her office and she said, listen, I am thrilled as your news director that you have decided to stay. But as your friend and somebody who cares about your career, it's time for you to go.
Incredible.
Yeah. I don't know that there's anybody who would do that today.
What a selfless act.
Yeah. And so changed my mind, came here, and actually, for not much more than I was making in Cleveland. And, so it was like, did I make the right choice? But I was home. My parents could turn on the TV and watch. And it's WNBC. And I'm going to be filling in for Frank Field, kibitz with Chuck Scarborough, Sue Simmons, Jack Cafferty, Pat Harper, Marv Albert. Talk about a murderer's row of broadcast local news.
All Hall of Famers. Did you feel that pressure in baseball, as we're talking about baseball, when you get called up to the majors, you're getting called to the show, and being in market number one, that is really, you're getting called up to the show. When those cameras go live for the first time, what did that feel like?
It was pretty heady stuff, and in fact, I was supposed to start this one weekend. And on that Thursday, Frank Field calls me, we come in and he goes, so how are you feeling? Feeling good? Yeah. I said, you feeling comfortable? He goes, you ready for your first day on Saturday? I said, yeah. He goes, well, then your first day's tomorrow because I'm taking off. Okay. Now, I don't know what the protocol is. I'm literally, So that Friday, the Live at 5 producer, this woman, Sue Levine, comes into the weather office. And, have you seen Frank? I said, he's not here today. And I won't use it, but she said, what the? She kind of swears a little bit. And he goes, who told him he could take off? I don't know.
I just got here.
He just told me to fill in for him. And she goes off swearing. Then the 6 o'clock producer, Brett Marcus, comes in. He goes, where's Frank? I said, I don't know. And he starts swearing. I'm thinking, wow, everybody's very thrilled to see me. Fantastic. So I got everything ready. And if you remember back in the day, for Live at 5, Don Pardo was the announcer. And he was on camera, and he goes, from WNBC TV in New York, this is Live at 5 with Jack Cafferty, Sue Simmons, and Frank Field with the weather. So now it's me, and I'm standing there, and I'm watching, and he goes into the thing, and he goes, Sue Simmons, Jack Cafferty, and Al Roker with the weather. Don Pardo just said my name.
Oh, man.
So in the commercial break, I go up to him and said, Mr. Pardo, I just wanted you to know I'm just a huge fan, and it was pretty exciting to hear you say my name. I know. I punched it for you.
Were all your friends and family watching that night?
Yeah, it was pretty cool. It's funny because I always go back to when I got my first TV job at Channel 5 in Syracuse. I called my mother, to say, hey, Mom, I just got this job on TV here in Syracuse. She goes, oh, what station are you on? I said, well, Mom, you can't see it in New York City. She goes, well, what channel is it? I said, it's Channel 5. She goes, oh, we have Channel 5 here. I said, yeah, but it's a different 5. Well, how could it be a different 5? Because WHEN TV, Channel 5, is for the Syracuse area. WNEW TV, Channel 5 in New York, is for the New York area. You must be mistaken, because I have Channel 5. And it was like a bad Abbott going back and forth. So now finally she could turn on the TV.
It's to go from literally in the basement, connecting speaker wire from the back of the TV, trying to record newscasts, and then to be on the air, your career just to take off like a rocket ship like that. I'm sure they loved seeing that. Congratulations. Today's show comes knocking. So, I mean, most people, to get to New York, and you're at the pinnacle of media, and that would be an amazing career for most people. But now you get an opportunity to do network, which is really the only place that you can go bigger than Market One. How did that all come to be?
Well, around 1986. I started filling in for Willard. Actually in 1985, I started filling in for Willard. I mean, I basically got the job, I think, because of proximity, and I could wear his pants, So, so I was filling in on, a pretty regular basis. I'll never forget the first day I filled in. It was Bryant and Jane Pauley, and Bryant, just before we go on, he reaches over, grabs my hand, and said, "If there's anything you need, you let me know." And it was, again, just such a lovely act of kindness. So I was filling in for him. And in 1987, they decided to start the Sunday Today Show. And again, not wanting to bring somebody from the outside, they asked me to do it. So I started doing the Sunday Today Show. Did that for a while, where I was working 6 days a week, doing the 5, 6, and 11, Monday through Friday. And there was a point where they're looking at the numbers and they're saying, on Sunday morning, we got a studio open in Washington for 8 hours, and we got a studio open in New York City we have to open for 8 hours for this one show. It's cheaper to fly the principals down to Washington and do the show out of the Meet the Press studio, because it was a huge studio. So for 2 years, I would leave on a Saturday, fly to Washington, do the show in the morning on Sunday, and then fly back to New York.
No kidding.
Yeah.
You were spending a lot of time in the air. It's similar to the Tom Joyner story when I believe he was going between Chicago and Dallas.
Although Tom Joyner was flying a lot more than I was, and he was doing it every day, which was still, to me, mind-boggling. At some point, Willard starts pulling back a little bit. He takes Fridays off. Okay. And I start filling in on Fridays. Then he starts taking Mondays off. Okay. I'll do that. And now I'm still doing the 5, 6, and 11 and the Sunday Today Show. He eventually decides he wants to semi-retire. And they came to me in 95 and said, we'd like you to take over for Willard. And what was great was there's no fanfare. There was no announcement. Nothing. I didn't want all of that. Just was like, you know what? Just let me do the job. I think I took over for him in January of 95. And it wasn't until March that people started going, where's Willard? Yeah. And then he started doing the birthdays on a semi-regular basis. So he was still there.
Did he remain a mentor of yours all the way through?
Oh, gosh. More than a mentor. He was almost like a second dad. In fact, he and my dad were the same age.
Okay.
Just a terrific person. I mean, he was one of those, he was the prime example of pretty much what you see is what you get. And that was pretty special.
The Library of American Broadcasting Foundation presents the Giants of Broadcasting and Electronic Arts Luncheon.
Join us on November 12th at Gotham Hall in New York City. This prestigious event will be emceed by Bill Whitaker of 60 Minutes and CBS News.
Honoring the 2024 LABF Giants of Broadcasting and Electronic Arts, Al Roker, Christine Baranski, Mike McVeigh, Patsy Smolin, Stephen A. Smith, Steve Jones, and Wendy McMahon.
Plus, Hearst Television receives the LABF Excellence in Broadcasting Preservation Award.
Proceeds benefit the preservation and expansion of the Library of American Broadcasting and the education initiatives of the Broadcast Education Association.
For event sponsorship and ticket information, visit tvradiolibrary.org. Be a part of preserving the past, reflecting the present, and informing the future. tvradiolibrary.org.
Is there a different feel from going from, we talked about Syracuse and Cleveland and DC and then New York City and now network? Did the pressure build each time, or at that point you would put in so many hours that it just was, I don't want to say second nature because it's not, you've got to work hard and do all that prep.
I'm nervous every day I go on.
Are you really?
Oh gosh, yeah. I think I'll be worried the day I'm not nervous.
That's part of the excitement, taking the field.
If you've seen the act, I could say something that would easily sink this career on any given day. In fact, I have what I call my wife's cringe factor. When I say something, how much is she like?
You have 3 daytime Emmys, 2007, 2009, 2010. New York Magazine also named you Best Weatherman. The accolades start to really now just come in. Is that, and we're going to get into the award that you're going to be receiving at the Giants of Broadcasting Luncheon. Obviously, it's great to win awards, but did that also give you some verification of the job you were doing?
I think, getting to last this long has really been something that you're grateful for and you have gratitude for. That's what kind of gives you a sense of whatever, pride or gratefulness, because, it's a tough business.
It is.
But these days, guess what? Every business is a tough business.
That's very well put.
I don't care what you do, where you work. Every business is a tough business. So, the awards are nice, don't get me wrong, although as they start coming in now, it's starting to feel a little more end of life.
Is it really?
It's like, well, we don't know how much longer he's been. Let's give him something now.
You look fantastic. You look better than ever. So you also have a thriving multimedia company, Al Roker Entertainment, and it's amazing the amount of content that you guys produce. You've got do work for obviously NBC, Lifetime, A&E, the History Channel, Discovery Networks, Oxygen, Oprah Winfrey. Tell me a little bit about Al Roker Entertainment and how that all came to be.
I always wanted, it sounds very cliche, almost next to, I've always wanted to direct. My first love really is production, television production. And so years and years ago, former general manager of mine took over Food Network and asked me if I'd do a few specials for them. And I did. And they did okay. So they asked to do more. And I thought maybe I could produce these. And they asked her if I could. And she said, great, go ahead. And so started producing those and then produced another series for them. And then, one thing led to another. And suddenly we were producing a show with the DEA, with Coast Guard, we did documentaries for History Channel. And I love doing that. I love, really my first love, and the thing I am most excited about right now, I love animation. My dream job would have been to be an animator for Walt Disney.
No kidding.
Yeah, I love animation, the idea where you create character and life and movement. So I've always wanted to do an animated series, and now debuting in July of 2025, I've got a kids series on PBS Kids called The Weather Hunters. And it's about a nuclear family, a family of color. Dad is a TV weatherman. His wife, Dot, is a television producer. And the kids, the middle girl, Lily Hunter, is a science buff. And so we teach STEM and weather, and we've got a great voice cast. Except for me, I play Al Hunter, but Holly Robinson Peete is my wife in the show. LeVar Burton plays my grandfather, Wallace Hunter, who has passed on, and we're living in his house. And this is based in history. He was one of the meteorologists for the Tuskegee Airmen.
Really?
They had a cadre of black meteorologists. And so we worked a little history into it. I'm just so excited. Cheryl Lee Ralph plays our next door neighbor. We've got some other guest stars coming up. So it's a very exciting.
Oh, this sounds like a wonderful show. I'm very excited to see it. And that comes out, you said, next year?
July 2025.
We'll definitely be on the lookout for that. You're also a prolific author. I mean, you have written several books, and you're very much into cooking. And tell me a little bit just about your passion for writing and for cooking.
Well, my mom was an avid reader. And I think most of the times the things we do, the choices we make are to kind of please our parents. Yeah. So my mom was like, it's nice what I was doing. It's nice. But, when I became an author, she was like, oh my gosh, my son, the author. I've written some murder mysteries. I've written 2 cookbooks, a lot of nonfiction, some historical fiction based in weather. But my latest book is Al Roker's Recipes to Live By. It's written with my daughter, Courtney Roker, who worked at 2 Michelin star restaurants and is a recipe developer. She thought it would be great to memorialize our family's recipes, my mother's recipes, her mother, all these folks in our family who just didn't write things down, my grandmother's recipes. And she just did such a terrific job. She interviewed people, talked to folks in our family, our friends, and came up with this terrific recipes. I write the head notes. She hired the photographer. She styled the pictures, the food in the pictures, trying to be as objective as possible, which is difficult, but I think it's a wonderful cookbook.
I think it's very inspirational how tight you are with your family, how important family is to you. You just went in about the series about the weather hunters and to do a book with your daughter. And that's incredible. What do your other children do?
My middle girl is in digital communication. She lives in Paris. And my son, Nick, is in college.
Oh, that's great. So they're all doing well.
Yeah, they're doing well, and they're out of the house. So not a bad thing. Tom Papa, the comedian, has a new special. And one of the lines he says is, my last child left for college, and now I'm left with trying to figure out how to pretend to be sad.
And then on top of the books, on top of the TV production, on top of your regular job at the Today Show, you also do the annual Rockefeller Center tree lighting, and you co-host the annual Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade and the Rose Bowl Parade. I mean, it is just remarkable, the body of content and work you do on a regular basis. So when you do the Rose Parade, I'm out here in LA. Do you come out for that?
I do. We come out to Pasadena. I think this is my 30th year doing it.
Oh my gosh.
It's funny. Again, Willard kind of blazed this path for me because he did the tree lighting, he did the Thanksgiving Day Parade, and did the Rose Parade. And now here I am doing those as well, and doing something that, that when people come up to you and say, oh, you're part of my Thanksgiving, you're part of my Christmas, you're part of my New Year's, that's like, that means so much. It really does. You've
done such an amazing job throughout the years, and I do feel that people here in the U.S., you really resonate with them, and I think it's a testament to who you are. And you're so, just speaking to you right now, I was kind of, been thinking about this quite a bit and not sure what to expect, and you're just so immediately engaging and easy to speak with, and grateful for this time. Just let's get into the Giants of Broadcasting. I want to congratulate you on being a recipient. I'm on the board of the Library of American Broadcasting Foundation, and Al is going to be getting a Giants of Broadcasting inducted at Gotham Hall, along with Stephen A. Smith, Wendy McMahon, Patsy Smolin, Steve Jones, and Mike McVeigh. So congratulations. Got one more question, the one bonus question.
Okay.
Do you, and obviously you've got a very famous wife as well, Deborah Roberts. How do you guys, both being in news, both being in this, this industry, do you set that down when you come home? Do you try to talk about other things, or is a lot of your conversation revolve around around news and television?
I think it's kind of a mix of it. I think what's great about us having two different networks, working at two different networks, it's good to have somebody that you trust to be able to give you kind of an outside view of things, to be able to bounce things off of. Because listen, we all need to have that person who you can actually confide in, check in with, especially if you're used to them giving you really good advice, which, Deborah does me. And I think we've helped each other by helping each other with our perceived, if you will, weaknesses. Deborah's helped me be more serious about journalism. She's helped me with a turn of a phrase or writing or things like that. And I think I've helped her show more of her personality, because she really is pretty funny and engaging and just lights up the screen. I think sometimes you can have that anchor, kind of stricture.
Sure.
And it's okay to show that more human side. And when she does, there's nobody better.
I love that you two are really a yin to each other's yang in broadcasting, and you both have such incredible strengths and very, complementary. And that's great that you work together. I mean, don't work together, obviously, at the same network, but
right.
Behind the scenes, you consult each other. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and if we commiserate about certain things at our work, and it would be difficult for somebody who doesn't work in this business to get some of the nuances. And then that's not to say somebody couldn't, but there's a shorthand that you can use, that you have, because they know exactly what you're talking about.
I agree completely. And it must be wonderful to have a confidant like that.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. I'm really grateful for it. My last question, what would be your advice for young broadcasters today that are aspiring broadcasters that are looking to get into the business and, are wondering about the future?
Right. Well, look, nobody knows what the future is going to, well, spoken as a forecaster, that doesn't sound like but that said, my alma mater, SUNY Oswego, every other semester or so, I'll teach a class with another teacher.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Does all the work. And he writes the syllabus. And we kind of sit down, and it's mostly done by Zoom or whatever. But I'll go up a couple of times and sit in the classes. And then we talk. And a lot of kids want to, and it's invariably the question that will come up like second or third is, now, what about work-life balance? Like, what are you talking about? Work-life balance. You're 22 years old. You don't have a life. Your life is to work and get your foot in the door and bust your tush.
Yeah.
And if somebody says, who wants to come in, you raise your hand. You just work really hard. That's the way it works. I'm trying not to be judgy McJudge face, but if you come in Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and somebody else comes in Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, possession is 9/10 of the law. When they look around and they need somebody, and there's an empty desk because you're not there, and the guy or woman who is there gets the gig or gets the assignment or gets to do something extra, you're going to wonder, well, why not me? Well, because you weren't there.
That's such a great piece of advice. I had a mentor tell me early on, show up. Just show up. Because if you were there, that's where the opportunity is going to come up. If you work harder than everybody else, a lot more opportunities.
My department chairman, this guy Lou O'Donnell, said, do whatever it takes. And when I was doing the weekend weather, I would also, because I love graphics, I would volunteer to do, because back in the day, there were no everything was done by hand. You had an X-Acto blade, a letterpress for the font. And that's how I would do news graphics for our weekend broadcast.
Amazing.
You know, and, they would shoot it on a camera and then it'd be in the chroma key behind our anchor. Yeah. Back in the day, to free up the film chains, they would have commercial sessions where they would just create reels of commercials for each break on 2-inch reels. And I would volunteer to direct the commercial reels, because it's like, okay, it gives me, maybe, because I want to be a director.
Yeah. And that production background has been really key in all the production work you do now too. And early on,
even in high school, I was in the AV squad. When they needed a film show.
Yeah, I think a lot of people also have the misunderstanding that broadcasters just show up and get on front of the camera. They don't realize the amount of work that goes in. And every minute that you're on camera, there's an hour plus of prep work going behind.
Listen, for my to start at 7, I'm on now a Zoom with my off-camera meteorologist, and we're going through it. It really is amazing. There were a lot of bad things about the pandemic, but one of the good things, if you can say that, the silver lining, if you will, was that we were able to reimagine workflow, because I used to have to come in to the office with my meteorologist, and it was, and go through the graphics. And now I can actually get up, go through everything, on with one program. He's on a FaceTime with our other meteorologist, and we can knock everything out. And then I can work out before I come in, and then I'm in the building, about 6 o'clock, and it's great. But that's called work.
It is. And it doesn't replace the amount of effort you still have to put in. It's it helps save you time somewhere else, but you've got to be able to utilize that. And I think sometimes people mistake the technology as a way to not do as much. And that, I think, is the wrong way to look at it. And, man, so grateful. Thank you. I know you've got so many things on your plate. Obviously, after interviewing you, even more than I ever had imagined, you are an absolute legend and just a wonderful human being. Appreciate everything you do, not only for all of your viewers every day, but what you do for the industry, what you do for humanity and our community as a whole. So thank you. Very looking forward to meeting you in person at Gotham Hall. And
there we go. Do you know, here's a question. Will they have, are there past hors d'oeuvres before?
Yeah, there is.
It's very important for the younger people. You're going to go to a cocktail party. You can tell whether it's a good cocktail party or not if they have pigs in a blanket. They don't have pigs in a blanket. Not that. Spicy brown mustard, pigs in a blanket.
Thanks for listening to Chachi Loves Everybody. If you like the show, we hope you leave us a 5-star rating and tell your friends. Make sure to follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. This has been a Benztown McVeigh podcast production. Hosted and researched by Dave Chachi Dennis. Executive producer, Darren Silva. Producer and editor, Jake Urbanik. Show coordinator, Estefania Padilla. Marketing and distribution, Suzanne Aksu and Robbie Gessel.